Hello. It's paint time again. And as you know, I was an early adopter of the Stuart Semple Black 2.0. And after the announcement of Black 3.0, I knew that I had to opt into the beta. And today, it came. So what we have in this clever little package is a sample size of the Black 3.0 beta for evaluation purposes. On the back, it does instruct us to stay away from Anish Kapoor, which, I mean, I will, don't worry. And a little evaluation tube of the Black 2.0, which should be the same as the type I already have, but it's in a clever little test tube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test them out on some canvas, and then I'm going to do a piece, and I'll see how I feel about it. What I'm going to start us off with now is a little swatch of the Black 2.0 from its little test tube. Now this is the Black 2.0, so we're getting the same lovely coverage that we're used to, because it's so highly pigmented. And I'm going to give that a little while, let it dry down. As it's drying down, I am going to do a little swatchy swatch of the Black 3.0, and that will be my first taste of the Black 3.0. As I understand it, there are several different batches of Black 3.0 that have been distributed, because this is a beta test, and we're looking to see what people like and don't like about each of the different batches to determine which is ultimately the best batch and the best black. Now again, I'm going to be going in with a dry paint, well, not completely dry, but dried down paintbrush. And this is the first little dip of Black 3.0 that I am taking. Right off the bat, it does appear darker and thicker. It does say on the outside of the tube that you should thin it to suit your purposes. I think that is a bit of a wise idea, because this is it's a much heavier body paint than the Black 2.0, which I find very interesting. One of the things that I noted about the Black 2.0 was that it was rather fluid and moved pretty well, pretty easily. This, you're getting a lot more brush stroke because of the body of the paint. I'm going to try to smooth that out, and I'm going to let both of these samples dry down and see how they both fare. So I will be with you again in a moment when this is all dried down. And now that everything is dry, we're back. To my eye, in person, in real life, in light, the Black 2.0 is significantly less black than the Black 3.0. The Black 3.0 has this lush, velvet sort of light absorbent quality that really sells how very dark it is. The Black 2.0, while a remarkably matte, lovely paint, it is just that little tiny bit more, I mean, I don't want to say reflective because it's not really reflective, but the light catches the Black 2.0 just a little bit more. I don't know how this is going to translate on camera because, of course, the camera doesn't exactly see what the eye sees, but I am so far thoroughly impressed by the improvements to the pigmentation of the Black 3.0. You can see, well, you might not be able to see on camera, but in person, you can still sort of see the texture of the canvas through on the Black 2.0. And on the Black 3.0, I think because it is a heavier body paint, you don't really get the texture of the canvas. You do get a little bit of the texture of the brush strokes, which is not apparent in the Black 2.0. But I think if I thin the paint a little bit as I was instructed to, we'll have a little bit better luck. And I think I will update with a third swatch on this canvas when I have thinned the paint. I will be right back again. All right, I have returned. I've thinned the Black 3.0 with just the tiniest bit of water, and now we're getting a much more fluid application, which is nice. We're not getting the big thick brush strokes that we got in the previous swatch. Of course, we're not quite getting that perfect opacity on the canvas that we got in that first swatch because of the heavy body, but I do believe that we were instructed to give it a few coats to build up that really perfect opacity. So we will see what we can get from this. So far, it is not really, I mean, because we're working in coats and layers, we're not really losing much of that pigmentation that I liked so much in the first swatch. I will give this another chance to dry, and I will report back when it is totally dry. And now everything is dry. The third swatch is the thinned Black 3.0, and I must say it is not as dark when it is thinned out by just a hair, but it is still significantly darker than the Black 2.0. It is also still significantly more matte. However, with the thinned paint, you get fewer of the thick brush strokes, and it still has that really velvety finish to it. It almost entirely lacks luster, which is really, really nice. As you might be able to see, I'll move the canvas around a bit. The Black 2.0, as wonderful as it is, does still pick up a little bit of the light and reflect it back. And the 3.0 is just so much darker. It's really lovely. I think you do, I wish that the heavier body undiluted form was more usable in its entirety, because I really, really like it, but those brush strokes do kind of take it down a notch for me. And the thinned version just loses that little bit of darkness. So I think with a little bit of playing around, I could perfect the absolute right balance between the black straight out of the tube and the black thinned a little bit with a little bit of water. Alright, so I want to show you what it looks like after about one very thinned out coat just to get coverage on a canvas. This is obviously the same canvas I used before. As you can see where I had the swatch of the 2.0, that smoothed over entirely with one coat of the 3.0. Where I had the unthinned 3.0, you still see plenty of the texture. And where I had the thinned 3.0, the lightly thinned 3.0, you still see the texture. Obviously, I thinned it. I thinned it about to the consistency of an ink to see how that was going to go, especially since we've been encouraged to do things in multiple coats. So I'm going to slap a second coat on this, and I will keep you guys posted as I go through to see how many coats it needs, because looking at this side in particular and looking at some of these kind of gouges in the canvas just from using my brush, I think we might need more than 2 coats. Alright, we are back and everything is completely dry. You can see there are not really any streaks, barely any brush strokes, and it's just a very thoroughly matte, flat black paint with a wonderful velvety finish. It does have the same sort of gritty texture that Black 2.0 had that I found a little bit difficult to work with in some applications. This is definitely not to be handled or used outdoors, I don't think, but I am very impressed by just the finish of the paint and the coverage after a few coats. I think it maybe looks a little different on camera than it does to the naked eye, but in person, looking at this, this is the flattest, blackest paint I've ever used, and this is with 3 thinned coats. You can still see where my swatches were, and that's where the brush strokes are. However, the swatch where the Black 2.0 was, you don't see any of those brush stroke marks. So definitely I'm hoping for the final release of Black 3.0 to be a little bit thinner. But I am very, very, very pleased with the formula as it is. The next time you see this canvas, it will be a finished work of art, and I will have a final update for you guys with some final thoughts and opinions. Alright guys, I think I am ready to give you my final verdict on the Black 3.0 as an actual paint and not just a swatch. So what I did for this is I blacked out the entire white canvas with the Black 3.0 in 3 thin coats, and I waited for it to dry completely so that it was super opaque and super matte. And I then took a white acrylic paint, medium body, with a little bit of, you know, your regular average acrylic gloss luster, and dry brush painted directly over it to really make use of the tooth of the paint. And so all of the shadows here are just done with dry brush with white and black. There's no mixing the paint with anything else. And you can see that there's a pretty decent texture here because of the canvas and the paint itself. And you can get a lot of different shades just by using dry brush. When I used the thinned paint directly over white acrylic, it didn't have the opacity that I was really hoping for, and I barely thinned this paint. It took a few coats to get the hand opaque, and it took a few coats to get the drips opaque in places. But that is what I've got going on so far with the Black 3.0. I am very excited for the final release of the Black 3.0 to see which formula is chosen and what sort of improvements I can expect in comparison to this beta batch that I tested. That'll be all for this particular black paint video, but as soon as the Black 3.0 is finalized and in my hands, believe me, I will be making a part 4. I will be making a part 4 of my black paint series. Just you wait.